From the Correggio Net team, welcome to Off the Grid with Correggio, the podcast where we unplug the latest energy market developments with industry experts and leaders. Hosted by Jan Haizmann, founder and CEO of Correggio Net. So sit back, relax, and let's dive right in.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you and to welcome in particular my guest of today, Mr. Rajesh Mediratta from the Indian Gas Exchange, to talk about the Indian gas market in particular in the series Off the Grid by Correggio. This is a new series of podcasts that we have been launching where we interview senior executives from the energy industry a little bit around the world, as our own activities have becoming more and more international and will go way well beyond the European sphere where it all started. Now, Rajesh is obviously not just a gas executive. He is an innovator. An innovator. He has constantly innovated the way that Indian energy has been traded, not only in gas, but before that in electricity. And it's a special pleasure and a very special event to have you here with us, Rajesh. So thank you for accepting this invite. Now, when looking a little bit at your company, would you like to present Indian Gas Exchange a bit, how you progress trading? What are your current? What is the current status quo? What's the outlook in the future?
Thank you, Jan, for inviting me to this podcast. It's really great to be part of it. So as you said, and also happy to hear nice words about us. Jan, actually, we have been in the industry. In the electricity industry for last 35 years, and I had been lucky to have initiated a platform for electricity spot trading, Indian Energy Exchange, in 2008, and we have also been looking for opportunities for having a gas trading platform since the days we started the electricity platform. But somehow the situation in India was not so right. So we were waiting for right things to happen, regulations to come in place, and then we would start the gas exchange. Incidentally, we were waiting, and then we were not seeing these regulations to be coming in place. So we initially, in 2019, we decided we will have a gas trading platform. Of course, it won't be called an exchange, because it would be under regulation, because there was no regulation, there was vacuum. So we started it as a gas trading platform in June 20, but it was well noticed by our policymakers and regulators, and then they issued a regulation by October 2020. And then we applied under those regulations and got the approval by December 20. And we started this as a exchange, a gas exchange, into December 2020. And in last 4.5 years, we have achieved a bit of success. We are currently, last year we did a trade of about 1.4 BCM. I'm not sure to what extent this unit can be understood, but I'll use this particular metric for giving the size. So we are about 1.4 BCM, and we have already traded on behalf of all our stakeholders in gas sector are participant for this particular platform. And we are the only one in the industry, so we have been supported well by the regulator, supported well by government, and industry also have supported us. Of course, we need a lot of more liquidity to enhance its credibility, and then creating a benchmark which we envision that we should be able to establish a benchmark for Indian gas market so that the participants are able to use it for their trade, forward trades and other trades which they do in bilaterally. So again, given a chance, I will talk more about what we need more. But given, I'll also give you a size of the industry. In India, we are about having total consumption of 71 BCM. And out of 71 BCM, we have about 25,000 kilometer pipeline network, trunk pipeline network. We have almost 50% we import to LNG, and 50% we produce our own gas. And if you see uh, on the domestic production side, largely it is regulated. The price for almost 50-60% of our domestic production is fixed by government. There is a formula, and then it's not freely tradable. But balance about you can say 30% of your physical domestic production is traded on the exchange, or it can be traded in the market. And out of that, there is something which comes on the exchange. And then also the whole LNG is fully market has got freedom. And then again, there is some part which is traded through spot. So 20% of that LNG imports are comes under the spot market, and 80% you can say is long term. And in terms of access to the network, we face some challenges. Of course, if you would like to talk more about that, we would I will definitely be happy to talk about it.
Yes, I mean, obviously, you mentioned, Rajesh, there are obviously a number of challenging parts that currently would need to be tackled. You just mentioned infrastructure or access to the network, and also which ultimately boils down to the third-party access regime, and also the efficient use of that infrastructure, what obviously is not utilized as soon as then there will be third-party access. Obviously, utilization of that infrastructure will be much improved. So, looking at things like price discovery, you mentioned benchmarks, Indian liquidity that would need to be created in terms of gas volumes. How would you see a gas hub to contribute to all of this? Maybe you look at these 3 points separately. This price discovery as a first point, second, liquidity, and the third one, infrastructure. I mean, in Europe, we obviously have had a substantial improvement of the utilization and its efficient utilization, I should say, of the European pipeline network by introduction of a regulated access to pipelines that would require a regulation in order to make it happen, because obviously the congestion that we had previously in the grids were mostly contractual. They were not physical, they were contractual. That means basically stemming from long-term reservations. So is this something which could be like a lesson for the Indian gas market, or is the situation not comparable?
Yeah, actually, we are not. We are quite different from a European market framework in terms of market efficiency. I'll tell you how we discover our price. So we have, of course, a lot of options for doing contracting for different tenure. People can do contracting through exchange. So we have contracts which are range from intraday, day, daily, week, fortnight, month, and that goes up to 12 months. Then, since our pricing of transmission is linked to distance and also contractual path, so that because of that, we needed to create different delivery points, options, or you can say hubs. And then there are 17 delivery hubs, and all of those delivery hubs. So the buyer and seller can choose any of these delivery hubs, and then they can choose the contract, and they can trade on the exchange. So basically, and also there is another important parameter is the taxation. Since in India, gas is not under common taxation, we have almost all commodities except some petroleum products, and alcohol is part of taxation by states. So every state may apply different taxation. So because of these, we needed to create different hubs because people have a choice of doing trade at different delivery points based on one is transmission tariff, transportation charge, and second is taxation. So because of that, there are now 17 delivery points. So when you say these delivery points, basically these are 17 markets. So that actually creates a challenge. But despite all of that, we have been able to trade sufficient amount. And then since there are one or two major points at which from where LNG is imported into the country, the Dahej is one such location, which is a regas terminal, and 70%, 60 to 70% of LNG import gets imported through that terminal. So our majority of contracts also happen at the Dahej. So the Dahej becomes the major delivery hub, and then what price we discover on that sets the benchmark for the whole market. And we call that benchmark as GIXI, and this is Gas Exchange Gas Index of India. And this GIXI is now becoming a benchmark, but of course, people can't use it for their futures contract because there is no futures market. So we are, when we are trying to develop liquidity for our spot market, we also are seeing development happening on the derivative side because in India, the spot exchange cannot run derivatives market. So there has to, because these derivatives are regulated by a financial regulator, and then they have a process of approval or granting authorization to such derivatives exchanges. So we have two or three exchanges which can launch a futures market. And that's what we have started in parallel to develop a futures contract. And then probably in maybe next 3 to 6 months, we can see something happening there. So once these futures are there alongside our spot contract, probably we would be able to really get a good benchmark, and then that benchmark will be very relevant for the Indian stakeholders. So this is where we are, and how we are different from European markets is in Europe you have created entry-exit system, which actually helps you to create one virtual hub per country. In India, we of course envision and we also feel that this is the right way to go. But the only thing is we need at least two things to happen. One is our transmission model should be switched to entry exit now, which is based on contractual part. And second is the taxation. So we need a common taxation for all of the country. So once these two things happen, we hope that we should be able to launch virtual hub, and that will help us to build one market for the whole country. In terms of infrastructure, we have well-developed infrastructure on western side and northern side of the country. But still, we need to connect our southern part of the region, southern region, even eastern and northeastern. These two parts are yet to be fully connected through trunk pipelines. So once these two also happen, probably we should also be we will get more liquidity and more users will join. But another development I would like to tell you that what is happening and where we see the growth happening in India. In India, we would see the city gas distribution, which includes the gas to be supplied to households, gas which is used by the transportation sector, and commercial and industrial sector. So all of these are getting developed. So far, we have issued, government has issued license. Of course, our regulator actually is involved in regulating that particular segment. And the regulator has issued licenses for almost all parts of the country, 100% of the country. And that happened in last 2 to 3 years. And after that, the city gas networks are getting developed. And once these city gas networks are going to evolve further, maybe in next 5 years, we will see major growth happening in city gas network. The city gas consumption today is about 20% of the total consumption. We hope to see it is going up to 30-35% over the next 5 years. And that will become our major gas user. And another peculiarity in India as compared to any other markets in Europe or US is that we don't have gas power plants, which are largely used for power sector. So because gas is costly as compared to other fuels which are available in the country, which is coal, and then we have seen a lot of renewables have been added, solar, wind, hydro is also there. So all of those are much cheaper than gas-based power plants, and that gas becomes a marginal fuel. And marginal fuel is used only for, say, peaking. And 4 months of peak season, which in India is the summer, at that time only we see major gas power plants operating. And within that also, largely we see during peak hours, like evening peak, non-solar hours, we see these power plants are being dispatched. So because of all of this, power sector has not seen the major gas consumption. But otherwise, we will see major consumption happening in the CGD network. And of course, refinery, fertilizer, and other industries are going to grow over time. But CGD definitely will become the leader in gas consumption. So that is also where we are different from Europe. So as I said that we need to have a virtual hub kind of model, which can help us to create more liquidity. Instead of 17 fragmented market, we will have one. And then other two things are like we should expand our infrastructure. And we also need to have a better access to infrastructure. That includes both transport and pipeline network. So that improvement in regulation is happening. And that we are seeing something happen in LNG access to the LNG terminal side. But of course, we will see. We need to see more on capacity access, third-party access for pipeline network. That is some reforms are we expect to happen maybe in this year or next year.
Yes, thank you very much. Obviously, the time when I started in this industry, Rajesh, there was also still a point-to-point system. There was no third-party access. Talking here of the early 2000s, all of this was not existing. We found ourselves at the time as being traders to be subject to multiple tariffs that all looked different and that all had different tolerance levels from the pipeline operators. So there was a lot of congestion most of it was artificial, because I mentioned earlier the congestion was mostly created through long-term capacity reservations by the ones who had invested in the infrastructure and basically not sharing with the shippers community that needed the capacity. At the end of the day, the experience with freeing all that up has been an excellent one. We have seen in Europe a very strong push into new infrastructure, notably new storage infrastructure, but also higher profile in terms of infrastructure improvements and pipeline improvements. So the utilization rate of the pipelines and the interconnectors is maximized. And that has given a little bit to everybody. I mean, if I look a little bit back at what the discussions were before the point-to-point system was given up, at the end, looking back at it, everyone seems to be happy. The infrastructure owners, they just receive a very nice and guaranteed return of interest for their investment. The shippers, they have a better market reachability and more liquidity because they can use the pipeline for their transports. And the banks are happy too, because they see steady returns on on the pipelines and on the investments that they guaranteed. So banks obviously always want to see steady returns for a long time in order to underpin the investments that are needed to expand these grids and infrastructure in general. And all of this has really worked out fine. I do not even see any whatsoever downside of it looking back. If I think of the discussions that there was certainly discussion also of security of supply not being perfectly secure with all these different shippers coming on. So I think looking back at the, let's say, the European experience that we have known more in my own environment is a very good one. So the also the regulatory access has worked out fine, simply based on the transparency. That means also equality of terms when using the pipeline. Now, what we did not have that much is the tax point, which is you mentioned is obviously something that's very difficult to tackle, a challenge, a mountain almost like, because everyone wants tax revenues to be there. Ultimately, for the European markets, we have solved in a way by exempting the wholesale trading from taxes. So basically pushing down the taxes to the point of last consumption. This is where the taxes are now raised. And this is now working fine. And why was this necessary? It was not only necessary because of otherwise liquidity would be difficult to emerge, but also in view of fraud risks that are there with taxation for companies that just there for a short time, then disappear from the market. By pushing it to the end customer, this VAT fraud risk has been minimalized, and this is, at the end of the day, it leads to also some justice in terms where the taxes are paid. Now, looking at the gas hub in particular, typically gas hubs, if you look at Europe, they really are close to where demand is, where logistics is, where, let's say, there is a modern pipeline system that could support this, also with direct interconnection with the industry. To me, it looks like the state of Gujarat is ideally located in India to be such hub, to be a price setter. It is true what you said about all these different NBPs and national balancing points that we have emerged in Europe through to the regulation, but the reality is that only one really sets the price for Europe, and that's the TTF. And here again, you see why it is setting the price. There is a lot of pipelines in the Netherlands because of the history of the Netherlands as being a big gas producer itself. There's a good connectivity. There is a completely transparent use of the pipeline system. And there is ultimately also a lot of demand there because around the Netherlands and in Germany and in the Netherlands, there is a lot of industry that take gas for their own purposes. So I think this is typically the dream location combined with connectivity internationally, meaning LNG terminals on one hand and also pipeline connectivity that historically has been very important in Europe and is now obviously migrating from a pipeline to more LNG oriented. So we're getting closer to the Indian system, if you wish, more in LNG related economy. But I wanted to ask you, where do you see the role of the regulator in all of this? We know now we need a regulation on the infrastructure. We need a better access regime that allows pipeline operators to have a better return for their investment, but also allows shippers to basically use that pipeline when they need it. Where do you see the Petroleum Natural Gas Regulatory Board's role in enabling this? If you had a wish list, Rajesh, what would be on your wish list to them?
Yeah, very good question. See, what we see that the regulator has a role to play in India. One is for setting the tariffs for the pipeline operators. And then also they can set the rules for access. So these two are clearly the area which comes under the regulators. and they are very cautious that they need to make improvements in both of them. And of course, there is incremental changes keep on happening. So earlier we used to have three tariffs, three zones. So on distance, the distance was divided into three slabs. So 300 kilometer, 300 to 1200 kilometer, and then beyond 1200 kilometers. So these three zones were used for settling the tariffs. And of course, every pipeline operator is required to meet its cost. But the problem in our regulation was that our pipeline operators do not get fully recovered in terms of their cost because they get their tariff based on per MMBTU, and that is set using a kind of nominal utilization. But if they don't have that kind of utilization, then they under recover their cost. So one issue we see that our pipeline operators face is this. And then second part is that when it comes to access, then we actually have a regulation which is about uh, which came into being existence in 2008, 2007-8, and then after that, if that needs further change. And one change we think is required immediately is that the time required for anyone to get access to the network today is about 3 days, and that we, of course, have been pursuing or requesting to make it maybe same day, because our power plants need dispatch. They get dispatch only on sometimes intraday basis or maybe on day basis. So if they want to actually run their plant based on the market based gas available, then they need to get this access very fast. So this access needs to be one important part. Second part is as what you said earlier, that utilization in case of Europe had increased because when we moved from P2P to entry-exit, then the utilization was better. We feel that entry-exit will actually solve a lot of other problems because today when we have about 6 to 7 pipeline operators. And when somebody wants to take gas from one region to another region, so that uses that they may use 3 to 4 pipeline operators. So today requirement is that they have to sign gas transport agreement with all these 3 or 4 pipeline operators. Then they have to book capacities across these pipeline operators. And then even when the transaction is scheduled from entry to exit, then the imbalance also gets calculated based on all of these at all each one of these pipeline segments. So all of this actually has created a lot of overheads in terms of booking capacity, signing GTA, and then imbalance settlement also is sometimes it's wieldy and uh, burdensome. So what we see that if we want to remove all of these bottlenecks and make capacity booking easy for the participant, then we should move to entry exit. So that's what that comes under, of course, regulator may definitely is looking at it. But we are in the process that when we want to switch from P2P entry exit to entry exit, probably we need to make the whole of the stakeholders see the need for such kind of change. And probably the way in Europe you did when your third energy package came in 2009, there was a time limit set by 2011. Every member state was required to switch to entry exit. So something like that, we need to set some timelines and then switch to different model for capacity access. So these two things I feel that we need to do. And then, of course, we also need a 24/7 capacity booking platform. Today, there is no common platform like Prisma. Every capacity pipeline operator has its own system through which the booking is required to be done. And then also we feel that either we switch to something like entry exit and do it everything. But again, still there will be 5 or 6 in next 3 to 5 years, we will see 10 pipeline operators. And then we feel that we should also have a common system operator. So we can call it as Indian independent system operator. Like in Europe, many countries had TSOs. So one TSO generally becomes system operator for the whole market in the country. So since we have about 6, 7 now, and then it will go up to say 10 in next 3 to 5 years, then we need to switch to a model where there is a common system operator. So that also the need has been appreciated by the policymakers and regulator, and we hope that over some time we will switch to. We will also have a system operator in place. Either it will be fully neutral government-owned company, or there will be some model we will be involved. So we already have in electricity sector independent system operator. And then one option can be like that electricity system operator may also be authorized to look at gas system operation. And then some of their or one of their fully owned entity or JV may be interested with this job of gas system operation. So I think on these things, discussions are happening, debates are happening, some kind of consultation. Of course, large scale consultation is yet to happen, but the discussion has started.
Well, it's a long wish list, Rajesh. You're not coming with no demands. We are looking at a lot of things you're asking. Now, obviously, Prisma has actually could be, let's say, a role model for the governance because it's owned by all of these TSOs. They run Prisma as a cost center, so it is more or less the eBay of the capacity, if you wish. And basically what has made it a huge success is this continuous auctions that basically run over various, let's say, maturities, including shortest term auctions. And obviously also the introduction of bundled products, which allowed people to just basically book from, let's say, Northern Europe to Southern Europe at Prisma in one go. And that has obviously then also, let's say, brought additional liquidity into the market. And I think this is a role model. We have it obviously in Eastern Europe. We have the another platform that deals with Greece and Hungary, so similar to Prisma. I think maybe this is probably the way forward if you get the governance right, meaning all the different TSOs work together. And I think there is this sort of learning experience that you have in India from the electricity sector. It is obviously very similar. You have here what we call an essential facility. I mentioned last time the term financial essential facility was coming from a struggle to enter the St. Louis railroad station in 1912. There was a judgment of the Supreme Court in a case of the US versus the Terminal Railroad Association. And this judgment simply said on a complaint of a train operator that he couldn't get into the station, that the owner of the station had to just give anyone who operates these trains also access to the station so that the passengers could actually get on that train and not somewhere else. So I think the same here applies for pipelines. It applies for any grid-locked, let's say, commodities. And I think the problems we have had with these point-to-point systems was just simply the unbearable operational risks that came from unbalances from various different balancing rules. So I think what definitely would need to happen. Maybe this was not on your list, but is it not standardization of the grid contracts? I guess that must equally be on your list, because this will then allow a shipper to actually know what the obligations are, and they are the same whether he uses pipeline system A or B or C. So ultimately, this has largely also, let's say, enabled, let's say, the uptake of the infrastructure and the reduction of risks associated with it. So now, before we stop, because we are now coming to the end, thank you very much, Rajesh. It's such a quick time, half an hour with you. It's really like a thriller, really. So, what is the next step? I know that India. I have to ask you about this because I'm also running a sustainable association. So, what is this hydrogen? Where do you see this coming in? Or biomethane? Are you seeing these as growth areas? And how do you bring this on the exchange? How can you help these sort of emerging industries and commodities, I should say, to get to more liquidity? That is my last question to you.
Yeah, actually, if you see both of these areas of hydrogen and biomethane, Indian government and the Indian whole ecosystem is very, very bullish on both of these. One reason for hydrogen is that we have a lot of potential for renewables. So a lot of solar we can add, a lot of wind we can add, and all of surplus solar can go for producing hydrogen. So that's definitely the area where a lot of work is going on, and we have ambition, I think, to go up to 5 million ton of hydrogen production by 2030. And second, biomethane also, we also have planned about 5,000 CGD biogas plants by 2030. The reason is that we have a lot of agriculture, and a lot of agriculture waste is being produced. Municipal waste is also huge, and all of these can be fully utilized. And of course, it generates a lot of local employment, and basically biomethane will replace our imports, and that will save on foreign exchange. So because of these two are so relevant to Indian energy sector, that both are being pushed by the government, and the whole of market is very bullish on this. What we have planned to do for providing market access to both of them. So one on biomethane, we are working to create a mechanism for renewable gas certificates. Currently, which is not, and which will be similar to guarantee of origin in Europe, and that we are working that how we can build this kind of framework. Government is working on it. Second, on hydrogen, we are also looking at a few regional hubs coming up. At least we know that 5 regional hubs are actually they have started working. 5 states have started working on creating hydrogen hubs. So like Gujarat, Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, and Tamil Nadu, and plus one, some Maharashtra. So these states will, because they have coastal coast, so they will actually work on it. These hydrogen hubs to have hydrogen for export purposes, particularly to Europe. So that's the vision they have. And with when they will have this kind of hydrogen production happening, then we will also be interested in launching market for hydrogen, spot market for hydrogen, market for balancing in terms of hydrogen, and also certificate, green hydrogen certificate. And for that, we already have signed one MOU with EEX and ZIZ. That's a German agency which is funding for getting us prepare a roadmap for Indian hydrogen markets. And initially, we may also be are just thinking on having a kind of index for hydrogen market, so that there is some price signals which go to the sector, and based not may they may not be based on actual trades, but they may be based on maybe the assess the cost of hydrogen in different parts of the country, or they can be we can use a benchmark which is similar to what CEGH has developed. So the models from Europe are available to us, and we are just when we will prepare our roadmap, we will see which one will fit more to Indian sector, and then we will start with having our own index to start with. And then as the market will grow, initially, of course, we understand that there will be long-term contracts, but slowly as there will be requirement for spot markets, because for balancing, you definitely need something. And then we will also have a platform for trade of hydrogen. So these areas we are anyway keeping a watch how the sector is growing, and then of course we keep developing our instruments based on the market requirement. And biomethane is very close, so maybe in next 1 year we should have something in place.
Well, a lot of plans. You're a busy man, Rajesh. I wanted to thank you very much for spending half an hour with us here. And sharing your insights and let's say what the future brings about in the Indian gas market, including the new more sustainable gases that we are coming to see in the near future. Thank you very much for your time, and I wish you all the best with your endeavors, and may all your wishes come true. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for having me. Bye.